Hey everyone, great to have you here. Today we're going to be making chapatis, and chapatis are just a really simple flatbread that we can use to serve alongside curries. They're really easy to make and they're really delicious. So we're going to start just by sifting 2 cups of flour with a little bit of sea salt. So 2 cups, I'm just going to use a sieve. And just add half a teaspoon of sea salt flakes. Sift it through. You'll find at the end you'll be left with the bran of the flour and a few of those sea salt flakes. We want to keep all of that goodness in our chapatis. So once you get to that point, you've got just the bran left behind. Just tip it in. Then make just a little well in the centre and pour in your water. You might find that you need a little bit more or less water depending on the humidity of the air. Flour tends to really change depending on the weather, and so you really need to use the amounts as a guideline, but the finished dough will really be something that you judge by the feel of it. We want it to be supple but not sticky and smooth so that we can knead it nice and easily. So just using my hand, I'm going to work that flour into the dough, and if it feels too wet, I'll bring in a bit more flour. If it feels too dry, a bit more water. Now, something I always tell my students when working with dough is the best way to not get into too much of a mess with it and to be able to handle the dough more easily is to use the flats of our fingers. And I usually tell them use duck feet, not eagle claws. So we're not going to be throwing our fingers right into the middle of the dough. Now I find that now that I've got it to this point where it's sort of semi-incorporated, it's easier to tip it out onto the bench and work it from there. Just get most of that dough off my fingers, and then out we go. Of course, making sure your bench is really nice and clean. And then it's just a matter of using those nice flat hands, kneading it to see how our moisture levels are. It's not too bad actually. I think it might be about right. Bring in all those extra bits of flour. And ideally when we're kneading, we want to keep the direction going in the same way. This is just to help all the gluten proteins to stretch out. And then once we've finished this kneading process, we're actually going to rest the dough, and this allows those gluten proteins to relax and gives us a beautiful stretch when we're rolling our chapatis out. So you can see this dough is pretty good. It's quite moist, but it's not getting really sticky on the bench. It's not leaving a lot of residue behind. If it is, it's a bit of an indicator that you do need to add a touch more flour. I can feel that it could do just the tiniest little bit more. So the way to add the flour in, so you don't get too much, just put a little bit of flour off to the side. And rather than putting it all over your dough, put it on the bench beneath and just work it through. Don't mind my wobbly bench here. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. It looks really nice and smooth. It looks lovely. So I'm going to pop it into a clean bowl, and I'm just going to cover it with a damp tea towel. You could use Glad wrap, but that's pretty wasteful. A damp tea towel, clean one, is better. Okay, so I've just squeezed a little bit of water through the tea towel to stop our dough from drying out. I'm just going to cover it there. I'm going to let it rest there for 20 minutes, then we'll come back and roll and cook our chapatis. Okay, so our dough has had a nice rest here. Good. Now we just need to divide it into our pieces ready to roll out. So we want about 8, depending on the size. Just roll it out into a little sausage like that. There's our 8 pieces. And then just roll it, knead it into a little round. And then just roll it out. So we're going for probably about 1 millimetre thick. I'm just going to heat up my pan. Now we cook these in a dry pan at about a medium heat. You're going to need a clean tea towel, dry, and we're going to use this through our cooking process. I'll just pop that to the side there. And I'll continue to roll some of these out. So if you find things getting a little bit sticky, rather than using a lot of flour on your dough, just put a little bit on your rolling pin or on the surface you're working on, and that way you won't end up drying things out too much, because if it does get dried out, it's just going to make it harder to work with. You can feel these are going to be slightly different sizes, but that's okay. Just going to pop the oven on as well, just on a low temperature, and that will just keep the chapatis warm as we are making the other ones. Okay, we'll start with this one. In the middle of the pan there. Okay, let's have a little look underneath and see what we've got. Yeah, I'm getting some tiny little golden patches underneath. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to flip it over. Give it a moment just to seal underneath. And then we take our well folded up clean tea towel and we just want to push down so that it really connects with the heat underneath. And you may notice it puffing up a little bit at this point. It's not going to be really fluffy like a naan bread though, because we haven't used any leavening agent, we haven't used any yeast or bicarb, nothing to fluff it up there. The only fluffing we're going to get is where we've got little pockets of air trapped in the dough, and the gluten will stretch around them. Okay, so we've just got a little bit of colour underneath, not heaps. That can go on a tray, covered in alcohol. The rest we fold over and then pop it into the oven while I cook the others. These ones are a little bit smaller. I'm going to see if I can fit 2 in the pan at once. Yes, just. there we have it, lucky last, some beautiful whole food plant-based chapatis to serve with your curry. Yum.